Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, let's go over NVIDIA stock experiencing a very painful day. I'm not gonna lie, it caught me off guard. I did not expect it to be this bad. I expected some weakness, but definitely not almost 9%. That's for sure. But it is what it is sometimes, you know, with the market like this, in a kangaroo market, with Trump constantly yapping about tariffs and whatnot. Well, you know, it's just kind of the market that we're in, unfortunately. But yeah, let's go over NVIDIA. I'll give you my thoughts moving forward and all that stuff. And yeah, if you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And again, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., I do have a membership section for just $3 a month where I share my thoughts, post updates mainly on Tesla stock, sometimes other stocks as well, for again just $3 a month. Or for $5 a month, you get access to everything in the first tier, plus NVIDIA updates constantly throughout the day as the market is trading. So definitely check it out. But jumping into it, NVIDIA closing the day with an absolutely pretty unbelievable performance. I'm not gonna lie, 9% down on the day, which is pretty crazy, closing at just shy of $114 per share. And we're now in quite a predicament. Now, I did thankfully, well, I did take a small loss, right? Obviously, I had those shares that I bought on Friday, right? That were up. I did not expect this kind of sell-off. I should have set a better stop loss, and at the very least break even. So I took a small loss on those shares, unfortunately, when it broke my level. But it is what it is. But NVIDIA is now in a very predicament spot right now. I did enter fresh cash record puts actually near the lows of the day, right before the kind of last 10-minute pump. But it's pretty, again, it's a safe position. Like I said, even when I entered on Friday, I mentioned I entered in a pretty safe position because I'm not super confident in the stock, right? Even though I do think there's a slightly higher likelihood it goes higher. But unfortunately, we ended up pretty much stopping at that first level that I mentioned, which was here. You can see that 382 Fibonacci at 126. That was the first level that we hit or got very close to it. Unfortunately, that was all she wrote. I definitely expected a little bit better. I expected closer to 130s, but unfortunately, sometimes that's just kind of is what it is. Now, what is the situation we find ourselves in now? So, as usual, I'll go over the bearish and the bullish. Let's go over the bullish situation first, and then we'll go over the bearish situation that we, unfortunately are in right now. That we will require a bit of patience before you do anything crazy, in my opinion, not financial advice. So, the bullish perspective is the fact that NVIDIA is setting up this kind of, descending wedge on the 1 hour where you can see we're actually getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So a break out of this descending wedge will actually be, of course, that bullish perspective. So in other words, if NVIDIA, probably as early as tomorrow, honestly, can essentially break above about 118, honestly 117 maybe, but I would say closer to 118 to be a little bit safer. If it can break back above about 118, it will break out of this descending wedge, and I actually think this has a good potential to send this thing higher, and this one actually can take NVIDIA back closer to $130 per share and get a pretty decent relief rally from these levels, right? So let's see if that actually plays out and if we can get that breakout finally from on NVIDIA on the 1 hour time frame with this kind of falling wedge. So let's watch for that moving forward. Again, honestly, it could happen as early as tomorrow, unless of course we end up tapping and coming back down once again. Then it'll obviously take a little bit longer. So let's see, when and if of course that ultimately breaks out. However, the one thing that's making me a little bit concerned and why I'm still, I did enter a bullish position towards the end of the day here near the close. But again, it's just a cash secured put. It's a pretty safe position, right? It's like I think I did a 107, I believe, cash could put for this Friday. Again, pretty safe, nothing crazy, nothing wild, very, very safe. Mainly because, yeah, the stock, unfortunately, there is a chance that this actually does make that ultimate sell-off back down to the bottom of the channel. I know people up here, apparently I wasn't bearish enough. I was bearish up here, but apparently I wasn't bearish enough. That happens to be the case with me. I usually am right about these things, but I'm just not as bullish or bearish as I should have been. In this case, I just wasn't as bearish as I should have been, honestly. Should have been even more bearish than I was, especially when everyone was telling me it's going to 160. Guys, we're at 114 now. I don't know about that 160 call that we saw up here. However, the fact that we broke down below about 116, essentially yesterday's low, and we essentially lost this trend line, and on the weekly time frame, we are arguably, now again, the week still has yet to close. This could be an astronomical bear trap, and we could still close back above on the weekly time frame, above this kind of rising wedge. If that does happen, I think we should get a beautiful rally, honestly, because that will be a false breakdown, which usually the opposite direction becomes like a slingshot effect type movement, and you move very aggressively in the opposite direction, which in this case would be a bullish move to the upside. However, that's one of those things where I'd rather see it, to believe it is, if that makes sense, because the thing I have a concern with is the fact that, despite Friday's very nice kind of end of day push, which actually saved the chart decently, we are starting to lose this trend line, right? I don't like the fact that we're starting to show weakness below this trend line. Now, again, like I said, it could be a false breakdown. It could be a bear trap, but I'd rather see it first before I assume that's going to be one. What does that really mean moving forward? Well, unfortunately, that means the fact that, this bottom touch on this daily time frame, which is also kind of this same rough level, you can see here that we broke down below as the weekly, that rising channel trend line. This does make this bottom trend line touch, honestly, potentially as early as this week, maybe next week. It becomes a reality. It really becomes a reality until NVIDIA can essentially reclaim about 116.5, or for better confidence, essentially break out of this 1 hour wedge, right? This falling wedge, which it is a falling wedge. Those are usually bullish breakouts when it finally breaks out, right? But we're not there just yet. So again, the stock is well below its Bollinger Band. It's very oversold. Like, blah 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 blah. It is very oversold. Which is why I did enter cash secured put, just to play a potential oversold bounce, because we are oversold now. But again, the reason I'm not entering aggressive shares here is because I'd rather wait for that breakout. I don't like the fact that we broke down below yesterday's low and we closed below it, decently below it as well, and we lost this trend line. And I don't like the fact that the weekly is sitting like this right now. Again, I just want to make it very clear. Yes, this can be a bear trap. Yes, this can reverse by the end of the week. Absolutely, it can. But again, when I'm seeing these kind of situations, because if this actually plays out, I'll make it very clear. If this ultimately does play out, 105 is like very low 100s is almost a guarantee at this point. We could see even lower though. That's the problem. We could even see lower if things really get bad, right? Like this momentum train can really stop. And essentially reverse back the opposite direction into the bearish perspective. Again, I'm not trying to say that that's going to happen either. But what I am saying is the fact that caution here is warranted because, at the very least, I think NVIDIA, 107 roughly becomes a very realistic target. And whatever happens first, whether we move down to 107 first or this 1 hour wedge breaks and we essentially recapture, which it would also imply the fact that we recaptured 116 because the wedge of this, to break out of this wedge would be essentially a 117 breakout roughly. That would be really, really good, right? So whichever one happens first, then I'm, willing to actually enter a position, probably just outright shares as well. But, right now we're kind of in, whodunit sort of type situation here. You know what I mean? So let's watch to see how it plays out. The other thing I'm not a huge fan of on the weekly that, again, it could fix, but as of right now, and as it stands as of right now, and this close, which is why I'm still more hesitant, at least for now, is the Bollinger Bands. The Bollinger Bands I was mentioning for the past 2 weeks or so, how they're getting very, very tight. Now they're expanding. And the issue is whenever you see the Bollinger Bands expand like this after some tightness and you're hugging a specific direction, usually more often than not, maybe 80% of the time or something like that, that direction that you're hugging that essentially forced that expansion of the bands, which you can see they're kind of pointing the opposite direction now, which is, it's expanding, it's opening up from, this tightness that we had here. More often than not, you move in that respective direction, and usually you actually move pretty aggressive. Let me show you an example with like Google or Amazon, right? Actually, Amazon I think is a really good example. It just happened recently with Amazon. So you can see with Amazon, right, almost like the same idea, right? Where Amazon very, very tight, started hugging the bottom end of the Bollinger Bands, started opening it up, and then it just pretty much hugged the bottom and just bled very aggressively downwards, right? This is a mistake I actually did make on Amazon. And this is kind of what's sort of printing on AMD or on NVIDIA, but on a weekly time frame, which has me a little bit on the more cautious end here, which is why I'm not entering anything crazy, nothing, aggressive until I see some better confirmation that this is essentially a bear trap, because it still could be. So the thing I'm watching for, essentially the two main things I'm watching for, at least for this week, or at the very least for the next few days, is this wedge and the bottom touch of this channel, whichever comes first. Either I'm entering, which is where my cash secured put is by the end of this week, either I'm entering pretty much right down around here, which again is 105, 106, 107, 104, like somewhere around there, which is essentially that bottom touch of this trend line. Or I see a breakout on that 1 hour wedge, and then we essentially make our way higher, which again is about 117-ish break. Whichever comes first. I don't know which one will come first. I don't know which one will play out. I don't know how it's going to go, but I know that these two factors exist. And thankfully, with a little bit of patience, once one of these two decide to play out, whichever comes first, again, 106-ish, I'll just say, to about a 117 to 118, ish, 116 to 118, we'll say break of this 1 hour descending wedge. That's just, that will most likely tell you the story of what's coming next, at the very least for the next, week or so. So let's see. let's see how this plays out. Let's see, you know, if it ends up actually getting that breakout or not, if NVIDIA can finally find that strength, or this ends up just being a, you know, potential massive sell-off down to 107 very quickly. So yeah, that's kind of my perspective. In terms of options flow, let's take a look over here. It is a difficult market, by the way. So again, you know, it's difficult for me. I've seen a lot of people on, you know, talking, a lot of people are, you know, it's a hard market. This is a hard market. You know, we have QQQ and SPY, for instance, moving up and down, like especially QQQ, it's moving up and down like 2 to 3% almost daily. Like that's, you know, that's pretty crazy, right? And you have the VIX, of course, spiking once again near the highs of the day as well, almost at $23. The VIX needs to drop down below 17.5 roughly. Once the VIX can drop down below 17.5, that's where this thing should calm the hell down. But as long as it stays, you know, kind of, you know, elevated like this, you know, it's, you know, careful, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You know, it's good to be a little bit careful there. But the good news is the fact that I am seeing a lot of bullish divergences start forming on, you know, the indices, for instance, QQQ, as it's making lower lows, it is starting to form very obvious looking higher lows on the RSI. SPY is doing the same thing. You can even go to the 1 hour time frame. It's, you know, similar idea. It's going lower like this, but the RSI is starting to make higher lows. Despite this, you know, a SPY in this case or QQQ making lower lows, which is a good sign, right? And it's happening across the board. Just on NVIDIA, it is kind of happening in the 1 hour time frame, but the 4 hour, it's actually starting to happen in the 4 hour. It's just the daily that's not really happening on. That's the only one that's kind of still a bit of a question mark. The 4 hour and the 1 hour are starting to show those signs, you know, which is a good sign for NVIDIA, but the daily is still a bit of a question mark here, right? The daily, which overpowers the smaller time frames, you know, it is still a little bit of a question mark until we get a little bit more confidence in either direction. Because right now this could be an astronomical bear trap, or unfortunately this could be that continuation to 106 roughly, we'll say. So again, probably the best thing to watch is just this 1 hour wedge, the descending wedge. Just let that break out. Once that breaks out, we should have better confidence in a move to the upside, which can easily take us to a 125, if not probably closer to 130. In terms of options flow, NVIDIA, pretty mixed throughout the day, unfortunately. Very, very mixed throughout the day. Very bearish in the morning, actually. But then it kind of actually lightened up towards the end of the day, and the bulls kind of started to come back in towards the end of the day. So, which is a good sign. Maybe we actually do get that relief rally slowly coming in very soon. But it does have a confirmed 37 million bearish flow on the day, which again, you know, it's a decent amount, but I wouldn't say it's anything crazy for a stock like NVIDIA. So yeah, let's just see. I mean, Trump just keeps yapping about tariffs. It just keeps spooking the markets. It's just, you know, again, we're in a kangaroo market. It is what it is. So as long as he stops doing these kind of things, essentially the market can finally follow through on some relief rally, or at the very least, even a strong bounce. And yeah, I mean, he, again, reiterated tomorrow the tariffs on Mexico and Canada is supposed to go in. So let's see if that actually happens, or if it gets pushed back. I mean, if it gets pushed back, we'll most likely get that relief rally, or maybe if it actually finally gets implemented, we'll get a relief rally, because now that kind of unknown random factor that's, is it happening, is not happening, what's going on, is sort of out, and the market hates uncertainty. So maybe that certainty will be a good sign for the market. But yeah, let's see how it plays out. Let's see what happens moving forward. But again, in my opinion, best thing to watch for right now, NVIDIA short term, is this sort of 1 hour descending wedge to get a better, clear direction as early as tomorrow. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.